Welcome back to another episode of NFL News on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host, Terry, and today talking about Dan Orlovsky and the backlash he got for his comments about Justin Fields. So Dan Orlovsky, if you didn't hear the story, was on the Pat McAfee show, and it seems like everybody's just getting in trouble when they go on there, and was talking about Justin Fields, and he said that what he was hearing was that his work ethic was questionable, being a last guy in, first guy out type, and also questioning, or there's questions about his desire to be great. I heard this, I think it was live when I was watching that, and I didn't think much of it. I didn't agree with it. I mean, I don't know him, but I'm just like, okay, whatever. Now, I don't like Dan Orlovsky. I'll put that out there up front because the whole segment obviously is more than just that part he said. He was talking about a lot of things, and I'm just like, this dude don't know what he's talking about. He's one of those guys that's on sports media that I'm just like, why? Like, him and Brandon Marsh, I'm like, they don't even know what they talking about. They just played football, and they put him up here, and they just talk like... And so I don't like him. I'll say that first off. But again, I didn't think nothing of it. And then it wasn't until recently I heard about the backlash. And then I was like, okay, whatever. But then I was listening to some segments, like, let me see what people are saying. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Let me talk about it, because I think it's absolutely silly. So the backlash happened because people were saying, well, I shouldn't say everybody. People were all saying it was problematic. We'll say that. I think that's universally what the people who had an issue with it said. It was problematic. It perpetuated some stereotypes about black quarterbacks. Now, on the extreme end, some people said it was racist. On the other end, some people said they don't think the intent was malicious or whatnot, but there's probably some racial motivation behind it, all those different things. So I'm just like, okay, wow. This is so ridiculous to me. I don't even know where to start. I mean, I know where to start, but it blew my mind listening to this. And you can tell, this always happens. You can tell that majority of the people that were talking about it didn't actually watch the full clip. And I mean, there's people that I respect and that I listen to, and many times they'll be like, well, yeah, I didn't watch the full thing. Like, they've said it many times. They just want to hear the hot part. Same thing when Kevin Durant was on whatever that podcast was with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, and he was talking about Golden State and all that, and people were just looking for that one soundbite, and they didn't really listen to the full context of it. It happens all the time. So you could tell because there were a few people I heard that gave the caveat that this is not what Orlovsky said he thought about Fields. That's number one. And so some good journalism where they gave him that caveat. Some people just act like it was what he said, and a lot of people, even though they was like it's not what he thought, that it was still problematic. So what it was in the context, the question that was asked and the conversation that was being had was Justin Fields was like coming into the season surefire number 2. Like, Trevor Lawrence was the number 1 quarterback and Justin Fields was right there. And we know they didn't play a full season, but we saw them in the playoffs. What happened between now and then that has drastically changed it? Because now everybody's talking about Zach Wilson. Everybody's talking about Mac Jones, Trey Lance. And so what happened that he just dropped in the perception of us that he's dropped as far as draft stock? And Orlovsky answered, and again, he said, this is not my thoughts, not my beliefs, but this is what the few people I've talked to in the league have told me. And he preferenced and framed it that way. And he said what he said, that people question his work ethic. So again, this isn't what he's talking about Fields. This isn't what he didn't even say he believed what he's been told. But the perception out there is right now that Fields is not in that top quarterback conversation. And so people are asking why. And the answer was, this is what people have told me. And so I think that's completely fair. Now people start to talk about how this has been used as a stereotype against black quarterbacks. I will say I agree that anything could be a stereotype, first of all. But I will say I agree that I've heard that a lot more with black quarterbacks than I have white quarterbacks. Now, to say that is, like a lot of people's like, I've never heard that about any other white quarterback. That's not true. Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield. What's the one guy that was a huge bust that went after Peyton Manning? I forgot his name, but they talked a lot about him being a diva and not really working hard as well. Like, we've heard it. It's happened. But I will say again, it's been a lot more with black quarterbacks. But every year there's black quarterbacks where you don't hear that about. And so people kept bringing up Lamar Jackson. They didn't question Lamar's work ethic. I mean, people were pushing things together that didn't even really go together. Yes, they asked him to maybe try out at wide receiver, because look at his speed, look at his athletic ability, and look at the ability to throw the ball, not only in the NFL, but in college. You knew that there was going to be questions about that translation. Chris Broussard, I give him credit. He was like, I had those questions too. I thought maybe he might switch positions, or that maybe he wouldn't be as great throwing the football. And a lot of people try to be revisionists and like, oh, I never had those questions. Like, yes, we did. Anybody that really followed the draft, yes, you did. But again, that doesn't really fit with this conversation. So that's what, to me, again, yes, I would say much more against black quarterbacks. But at the same time, I wouldn't say a stereotype as in they say that about every single black quarterback. That'd be more of a stereotype. I would just say it was kind of one of those myths. Now, since then, Dan Orlovsky screwed himself because he did what every public figure does, and that's backtracks. Or they double down, but he backtracks. Not only does he backtrack, he apologized. He apologized for saying what other people told him. And people are like, you don't understand the power of your platform. You perpetuating this stereotype, And again, I've heard different takes on this, all from people of color. But some people are just like, no, you just never say it, even if it's true, which is ridiculous. Some people say, no, if you know it's true, then say it. There's no problem saying it, but do your homework. And so Orlovsky has now, because again, if you said, hey, I talked to some people I trust, I don't care if it's two people, those are the people you trust, and this is what they told me. Obviously, something's going on with Justin Fields as far as the perception. So this is an answer that he had from people that told him. And so that's fine with me. But once you go back and be like, well, there was other people I could talk to and I didn't really ask them, or I went and talked to some people in Ohio State and they disagreed and blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, first of all, I've rarely, in the years that I've done drafts, seen people at the school come out and be like, yeah, no, he's terrible. Like, the coach is usually going to back the player and, other people as well. This ain't draft day with Bo Callahan. So, usually that's what's going to happen. That's not surprising that a lot of people around Ohio State said that. But still, this idea that you're throwing out there, oh, I could have talked to them, but I didn't, or, oh, now I got all these other sources that told me that's not true. Now you're making yourself look non-credible. You're making yourself look like you didn't do your due diligence. Now, I will agree with people, if you didn't really look into it, and it's still tough. If you didn't really look into it, like, as hard as you could, and then you come out and say, I think this or this or that. Yes, that is misusing your platform. That's perpetuating a stereotype that can, not even a stereotype, that's perpetuating a designation that could be harmful to any player. But again, in the context of the conversation, He was not saying this is what I think. This is what I've been told. It don't matter if it was one person or 50 people. This is what I've been told. You're asking me why? This is one of the things that I've heard. Now, again, he never said it's true. He even said, I don't believe it. And so it's crazy to me how this would even blow up and people would quote unquote have backlash against it. Like, y'all don't know him. This reminds me of the Deshaun Watson thing, where people were just like, if you were defending the Texans or anything positive about Texans or against Deshaun, whatever, they'd be like, you don't know. You weren't there. Obviously, he's seen something, blah, blah, blah. So obviously something happened where he feels this strongly, and you don't know enough to tell him he's lying. I was like, but you also don't know enough to say he's telling the truth. What are you talking about? How can you stand on high authority when you know as much as I do? And this is the same thing. So you're going to sit here and say, that's a stereotype. That's harmful. That's this and that. But you don't know him either. You don't know Justin Fields. You're not around him. I'm talking about the talking heads and the fans. Y'all not around him either. So how can you sit there and say, oh, this is a stereotype, this is disparaging, this is blah, blah. Maybe it's true. Maybe this is actually what he is like. Dwayne Haskins, anybody? So I don't want to hear that. It's just, it's silly to sit here and condemn Orlovsky. Again, if it was a different circumstance where he came out and said, I don't like Fields in my top 5 because I think he's lazy, and I've been hearing people also say that he's lazy, that'd be different. He was just telling you, relaying information of what he heard. And so people, and then I see people even reaching as far as to say the people that told him that might have had some bias or, racial motivations. You don't even know who they are. The people that told him that could have been black themselves. Like, it makes it hard because people try to say, like, you're not down for this, you're not down for that, blah, blah, blah. I'm down for the cause much more than a lot of people that sit here and talk. And so I'm down for the cause, and that's why this makes me upset, because I get it. It's a lot of people on the fence that you could win over, but when you make everything a issue, and it's not to say that this is not possible. What everybody's saying is very possible, but with no evidence, you just jump into that conclusion. And I'm all for questioning everything and pointing out what could be, but I'm not going to ride the horse and go on a tirade to say this was racist or this or that. I'm not going to jump to all these conclusions, because when you do that, you just lose the credibility, and it makes the struggle even harder. And so when it's much like when we do when we have the conversations about sexual assault and stuff, and when you have people who either condemn everything, or you have people that say everything is a false allegation, it makes it harder to then actually get to some common ground. And so, I just thought this whole thing was silly. Orlovsky, in my opinion, made it worse by apologizing and now making himself look not credible. And some people even said like they happy this happened because now everybody's rushing to defend Justin Fields. Again, you're rushing to defend him because it looks good. When nobody defended him before those comments, when nobody coming out stomping their feet when they see all these mock drafts and whatever, like, I mean, obviously you got people that are in his corner, but now it's the cool thing to defend him because it's a racial issue. And I don't think that the way that sports media, Skip Bayless, Stephen A lot of these people talk, a lot of fans talk, they really think teams draft based off what people are talking about. They really believe that a bunch of mock drafts might sway the opinion. I literally heard Skip talk about a team like looking at all the hype in the mock drafts about a certain player and being like, oh, well, maybe we should get. Are you kidding? The billions of dollars that go into this, you think They are listening to TV, to radio, to comments and saying, well, maybe we need to draft this person. Y'all have to be high out of your mind. Teams have their process. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I guarantee you they are following their process and not what people are saying. So all of this talk and all this discussion in terms of the draft don't mean a whole bunch. So there's that. All right, that's it for me. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.